Prime Minister David Cameron will lead his country for a second term after his party's victory in last week's general elections in the United Kingdom. The Conservative Party won an outright and unexpected majority. The other big winner was the Scottish Nationalist Party. It now has more seats in the House of Commons than ever before. Could that result in another attempt at Scottish independence? There are also questions about Britain's role as a member of the European Union, with a referendum set to take place before the end of 2017. We begin with CCTV's Richard Bestick, who joins us from London. And Richard, some are calling this an earthquake, a political earthquake in Britain. We have David Cameron and his Conservatives winning this unexpected majority, and Nicola Sturgeon and her Scottish Nationalist Party making big gains in Scotland. So put this into some kind of perspective for us.
Well, the Prime Minister is putting the finishing touches, putting names to the ministerial positions in his new majority government, and no need to ship in ministers from other parties in a coalition. He can do it all by himself, because this has been an extraordinary election in a number of different ways. First, that result. Extraordinary that for something like 5 weeks of constant opinion polling, Britain's 50 million registered voters kept a huge and mischievous secret how they were going to vote. Right up until the polls had closed, everyone in the country, the UK's mortified opinion pollsters, politicians and opinion formers, were all entirely convinced we were talking about a result on a knife edge. Turns out we were entirely wrong. UK Prime Minister David Cameron had a full majority, a political triumph. And then coming back down to reality, though, Cameron's parliamentary majority is slim, 12 seats. The question being asked here is for how long he'll be able to savour his victory. He faces some tough challenges ahead, with conflict not just in Scotland but in Brussels and indeed among his own party members in Parliament.
And it looks like, Richard, that one of his biggest challenges will be to keep the United Kingdom united.
Well, yes, a clash is very much on the cards with the Scottish Nationalists. A landslide victory for them north of the border makes them the third political force in British politics. They concede that makes more likely demands for a second independence vote, which the yes vote very nearly won last year. And following their election triumph, the fiery party leader Nicola Sturgeon is already demanding full control over Scottish taxation and welfare. So Cameron has difficult decisions to make. Outside number 10 Downing Street after the election, he talked of respect for all nations in the United Kingdom, code for a massive devolution of power to the Scottish Parliament. Holyrood. However, the constitutional technicalities will make those concessions difficult to deliver without another bruising political conflict.
Right, Richard, and another big issue for him, he's promised a referendum on Britain's continued membership of the European Union. And as I mentioned, that referendum has to take place before the end of 2017. What are the implications of that?
Yes, at the same time as he's wrestling with the Scottish, Cameron has picked a fight with Brussels. He set himself a 2-year deadline to renegotiate and then hold that high-risk in-out referendum that you mentioned. 2 of his most senior ministers have already been dispatched to Berlin and Paris to see what's possible. But Eastern European states are already warning Cameron to lay off the EU's freedom of movement. It all threatens to be hugely time-consuming, place Britain once again in the role of Europe's awkward squad, and cause conflict within the ranks of Cameron's own party in Parliament. The outcome's not a foregone conclusion. If Britain left the EU, the Scottish Nationalists really would demand a second independence referendum and the markets would go mad. Victory is sweet, but sometimes you've got to wonder whether Cameron wishes its afterglow would last just a little bit longer.